Hello, my name is Maggie, and welcome back to Bent But Not Broken, a space where we have honest conversations about life, healing, and journeys that take us through and develop us and grow us into people we are today.
And hello, my name is Sharon Mwatse. I am the co-host and your content creator. This platform, we've created it to tell stories, authentic stories of identity, family structure, conversations that we should be having in general as South Africans.
Yes, definitely. And today we have an amazing guest, but the topic that we're going to have is about blended family. And I know you love this topic. Are you planning to adopt?
No, but I mean, I have a blended family with a stepfather. So it's a beautiful thing to experience. My son has like two fathers, so it's always wonderful to blend a family. But that's not the only way that families can be blended, because we find interracial marriages, we find biracial children. There's so many dynamics in terms of blending. And today's story, I think, is one of those phenomenal stories about how race can never determine how much love a person can receive from you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And with the situation we have in our communities, we have to foster, even if fostering, right? We have to, I'm always fostering. At some point, somebody was telling me, Megs, you need to stop. You need to stop. Fostering, adopting, those things we need in our communities because we remember where we come from as a country. We must remember where we come from as a country and have the compassion to, when you see a child in need, you reach out and you're like, what can I do to help? And when families, I mean, back in the days, I don't know if you would relate with this, we actually fostered because if your mom and dad would pass away, auntie will take you in his house or granny will take in. Yes, but I heard a story that you actually, your grandmother.
Yeah, so my grandmother ran a daycare and these three kids were not picked up after daycare. So just three kids, siblings. And apparently the story is that the father had killed the mother. So he got arrested and the kids had nowhere to go. So my grandma was like, I mean, the kids are going to all be separated. So how about I take all of them? And I just grew up having uncles and aunts, like extra dozen of love, right? So it's something that you never really process. Like you just accept that this is the norm. This is how we are. We are a family.
Yeah, wow. And that's what I'm thinking. Back in the days, also me growing up and being at my grandmother's house, my grandmother, we always had extra plates for people who were like, sithini elokishini like uyahlanya or SD, people will remember where I come from. Like, and every time when we eat as kids, kids, we used to sit down when we eat. Then they would say, oh, bring so-and-so's plate. Oh, bring so-and-so's plate. And I feel like we need to go back as a community in those days where we had more compassion, and your grandmother did a great job.
Thank you so much. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about blended families. And we have such a wonderful guest in studio, a phenomenal woman, a wonderful mother, entrepreneur, just a mentor to so many people, including myself. Hi, Kim. How are you today?
Hi, Sharon. Hi, Maggie. Thank you for having me. I am well, loving being here.
Hi, Kim.
You look amazing, by the way, I have to say. Please tell us a little bit about Kim. Who are you? Where were you born? And just as a person, tell us a bit about yourself.
That's a lot given my half a century of age. I'm trying to own it. I was born and raised in England until I was 15 because my dad happened to be working there at the time. My mum is South African, my dad was Dutch. And I moved to the Netherlands, or we as a family moved to the Netherlands when I was 15, which I was delighted to do. And I had a wonderful time in Holland, ending with trauma, sadly or tragically losing my brother.
So sorry.
Thank you. And we had always said that we would move to South Africa after we studied. And we knew that my mum wanted to come back to South Africa. And we had this adventure idea for us as a family. So I decided through a lot of trials and tribulation after taking a gap year or two, that I wanted to study performing arts and I wanted to study in English, even though I could have studied in Holland, and I didn't want to go back to England. And so I applied to study here in Cape Town, and I was successful. And I came here in 1996 to study performing arts. That led me into my favorite part of performing, which is voice artistry. And I'm still working as a voiceover artist. And I dabbled in a little bit of on-screen and stage acting. And then after the birth of my first daughter, I went into baby accessory mode and started manufacturing baby products that weren't available in South Africa and opened up the industry to safe sleeping, baby sleeping bags. And it was a beautiful company until fraud and corruption got in the way, and I lost that baby, literally and figuratively. But entrepreneurship came about from my training in communication, in performing arts, having the confidence to speak, even if I was completely broken on the inside. And that, after that, that led me, not led me, but I furthered my coaching brand, which I've always dabbled in on the side. My iShine communications coaching then led into life success coaching, because so much of life comes into the spoken word. How you feel about yourself is how you perform in personal and business relationships. And alongside that, I've been mentoring children since 1998. And that led me to co-found a nonprofit organization working with at-risk and impoverished youth in Hout Bay. Amidst that, 2 more daughters and a beautiful, sickeningly happy marriage.
That's beautiful.
We can tell.
I think that part is so important. We hear about so many unhappy situations, and I'm an ambassador of the happy married club.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Now, Kim, you're talking about your organizations. Tell us a little bit about them and how you actually, when you decided, especially dealing with kids in the townships, correct? Is that correct? How did you come about and how did you convince your family to join you?
My husband, I'll go back to him. We are because of his inherent kind nature. He's a silent type, stoic. He's also an advanced life support paramedic. He cares about children and animals. And so we were very aligned in that citizenship responsibility when we met. We live in Hout Bay, and I was a counselor at the victim support unit at the police station. And I have a good resonance with teenagers and young adults. And I was getting a lot of the cases where young girls were being brought in by mum, aunt, gogo, with this child has been raped. And I was discovering in that time that a lot of the girls at age 11, 12, 13 would say, no, I haven't been raped. It was consensual. And a long story short, what became really prevalent in my time there was that girls did not, many girls did not have positive male role models or fathers in their lives. They were being targeted by sexual predators, blessers. A lot of children are locked out of their homes in the townships until somebody comes home from work because they don't want girls to fall pregnant. Yeah. So the girls aren't allowed to can't bring people back. But what happens is then that these men say, hi, come into my house, watch my TV, I'll buy you cool drink. Let me get you some data. And that relationship is part of the grooming process where further down the line, that man says, you see everything I do for you. You see that I love you. And this little girl says, yes. And then he says, do you love me? And the little girl says, yes. And then he says, well, when people love each other, do you know what they do? And this is what I was getting from the girls that I was working with. And the other side was that even when I had a translator with me, the girls had no vocabulary to describe feelings. There was no opinions. There was no understanding that an injustice or a crime had taken place. And I even had my English wheel of emotions translated into isiXhosa. And they didn't even know what those words meant in isiXhosa. And around that time, I was approached by my co-founders, Mandisa and Nandipa, who I'd known for a long time. And the organization, the nonprofit organization that they had been working with and had trained through, had fallen into disarray. And I was asked to come in with my business acumen. I certainly knew what not to do because I'd lost a very good business. But to have a look at it, and I saw that as a way of furthering the work that I was doing. I was very passionate about giving equal opportunities. I was already mentoring a lot of children and young adults, seeing the results of coming in with I would say my more European trajectory, where in the Netherlands especially, people are direct, but direct in a way to get things done. It's not personal. Let's not walk around the edge. Let's just say that's not acceptable. You need to show up more. Punctuality is important, etc., etc. And then those core values and those work ethics had stood me well, had stood everybody that I had mentored when I came to South Africa, had stood them really well. And that was what I could see that the children needed. They needed a sense of purpose. They needed to see what it feels like to invest in yourself and to have pride and self-esteem and self-worth. Because it seemed that they weren't getting that. And what better way to do that than through having fun in the performing arts?
Absolutely. Kim, you spoke about the transition moving to South Africa. I want to know, when you became a mom, what was that like for you? First time being a mom, people struggle with postpartum depression. How did you ease into that role?
With my firstborn, I had a very painful pregnancy. But I was so delighted, and the motherhood felt very natural for me. I can't lie. It, it I was in a good space. I had my parents by then had moved to South Africa. They lived down the road. I was in a good space. Broke. My first husband and I were completely broke. Completely broke. That's another story for another day. But we made it happen. I was working as a makeup artist freelance at that time, and I'm used to hustling. I've been working since I was 14 years old. So I went out there and I got freelance makeup work, and luckily I had a lot of really good voiceover work back then. And motherhood came naturally. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And being a busy woman as you are and talking about motherhood, how do you then balance your organization and being a mother? How bring us to that situation?
So when I founded Amoyo, I was with my now husband, and we had our second daughter. And I was very naive because I did not know that running a nonprofit organization is like running a business empire on steroids.
Yeah.
Plus some.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that bode me well in that I'm not scared of hard work. I'm really not scared of hard work. I have developed my companies, my work, my coaching company, my programs. I'm a person who has an idea and I go for it, and I don't stop to think about what it's actually going to undertake. And that's what I've done with Amoyo as well, is that when there is a need with the beneficiaries, I find the solution and I implement it and I learn along the way. And I think that's my trajectory for life is I don't wait for anything to be perfect. I just go forward like a bull in a china shop. And I fix things along the way and I learn things and I ask people questions. And same with motherhood. My husband and I often will put something in place. This is positive parenting. We've got this. And then a week later we'll go, well, that failed. Right, back to the drawing board. Yeah. So that's part of being a coach is you take action and you learn from your mistakes or you learn from something that didn't work and you go back to the drawing board.
Absolutely. And I know that you're operating in Hout Bay. Is it Imizamoyam specifically? How has that been, and how have you been received by the community as a white person coming in to help, one? And two, what's that one thing that you encountered that broke your heart, literally changed your perspective about life in the townships?
That's a fabulous question. And I mean fabulous in the same in the sense that it is so deep. I want to go back a little bit because there's something that really stood out for me. Coming from the Netherlands, I'm a very open person, liberal minded, because I grew up in the Netherlands during an incredibly liberal time. So when I came to South Africa in 1996, and I was at the Waterfront Theatre School College of Performing Arts, we had a mixed race body of students. And again, I'll say that I was naive to what the previous regime had really been. And I think that was in my favor because I came to South Africa seeing human beings for human beings. So when I was at college, we just got on. I honestly didn't feel the ramifications of apartheid. And I remember we went one lunchtime down to the waterfront and I grabbed my friend Dominic and I looped arms with him. And we saw ourselves as the cast of Fame. So we would literally be dancing down the mall hallways and singing whatever song we were busy studying in musical theatre. We really were bringing Cape Town to life. You knew when the Waterfront Theatre School was in your restaurant or somewhere. We really took on Fame. And Dom said to me, Dom was big on ETV. What was that first when ETV was launched? And he's a radio presenter. He's been with a lot of the radio stations. And he said to me, are you okay holding my hand? And I said to him, why? And he said, don't you see how people are looking at us? Dom's black. And I hadn't noticed it. I didn't think about it. And my response was, I really don't care. So I have always had that thought process. And I come from a blended family in the Netherlands. And I had a photo of me and my cousins in my apartment, and my friend said, "Who are these colored people?" And I said, "Sorry?" I didn't know the term. And I really didn't. And I said, "Those are my cousins." And they were like, "Huh? What? How? Why?"
Yeah. Yeah. Such a culture shock.
Yeah.
So I think that was just my upbringing. I've dated Asian, I've had an Asian boyfriend, I've had a black boyfriend, I've had what you would say a colored boyfriend. But it just doesn't register with me. So I needed to explain that to coming into the township area. I had been in a lot as a community worker, working on the ambulances, going up there for elements of the victim support work, taking it in my stride, to be honest. And I cannot, believe it or not, this is going to shock you, especially Sharon. I actually suffer, and I've been formally diagnosed with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which means that if I feel rejected, it causes me extreme stress and distress and anxiety. And I've known it for a lot of my life, but only now am I really starting to talk about it because I'm a confidence coach. But it doesn't mean to say that you're not struggling on the inside. So that's a big thing for me to now understand about myself. But because I've gone through life walking on the edge of, am I good enough? I got teased terribly as a child in England, which is why I was so happy to get out of there. And I was bullied and I was beaten up one time. And so I've always just had to go through life with my confidence crown on. And this is one of the things that I coach. Stop looking to your left, stop looking to your right, because the only person that you can account for is yourself. And the only person that you can ever rely on totally is yourself. So when I started working in the township, I treat people as I would like to be treated. I make eye contact. I say, "Good morning. How are you?" And that's what I decided to do. And I was met with looks. I very quickly learned Mlungu. And in the beginning, I would I have a name. My name is Kim.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I embrace it for what it is. What I feel proud of now, and I say proud because I don't think many white South Africans, and I'll be very blunt about this, I don't think many white South Africans take the time to truly understand the dynamics of township environments. And that is something that I learned very quickly, or I chose to learn very quickly, that when a child's immediate needs are met, if they are loved, if they have got clothes to wear, a roof over their head, food on the table, and that love and that care is there, they may not see anything wrong with the poverty that they are living within. And I say this from a very early interview that we had at Amoyo, whereby I had to prepare some children for an interview with Espresso TV who came to visit. And the question was, how does Amoyo help you deal with the challenges you face living in your community? And I asked two of the older teenagers, and they said, Amoyo keeps us away from negative influences. Amoyo helps us forget that we're living amongst crime and gangs, and gives us the confidence to say no to negative peer pressure. And these girls didn't have happy homes. So it was, Amoyo is the home that we don't actually have. And then I asked two younger girls who lived in the very top part in the real impoverished part where you'll walk into shacks and there might literally just be a wooden crate, and the level of poverty is heartbreaking to see, and mud floors. But these two girls came from a tough area, but they both had a mum and a dad who took immense pride in their parenting journey. And when I asked them the question, and they were, I think, 9 years old, they answered, "We don't have any challenges." And that stayed with me. I think you've probably heard me tell that story before. It made me realize brick house does not equate to happiness. And the same as children that I work with from the richest schools and richest neighborhoods, intense depression because they just have money thrown at them, nannies, drivers, but they don't have parents.
Yeah. Now, Kim, I love, oh my God, I must come visit you. I must come visit you so you can coach me because I'm a newbie here. You just went and touched the topic now because we really wanted to know more about you, the blended family. You mentioned that in Europe where you come from, you coming from a blended family, and you actually yourself adopted a daughter. So you also included that in your current present family where you adopted a beautiful daughter. Please tell us more about that process and her name and all that.
I'm so sorry she's not here with us today. You should have her with her sisters another time.
Definitely.
The other side of the coin. We have been a registered place of safety for emergency situations in Hout Bay. And when I started Amoyo, going back to your question, which I didn't even get to, my husband just knew it was part of the process. He had accepted me unconditionally, and unconditionally meant mother to many. And and so when I started realizing the reality of some of the home situations, I started bringing children into our home just to have time out while we could mediate, while we could counsel, where we could assess the situation and try and encourage a happier home, open up lines of communication between parents and children. And then in our second year of Amoyo, I heard that one of our matric girls was struggling, and that was Busi. And Busi had this spark around her the previous year. She was a go-getter. She was a yes, I can person. All the children were predominantly no, I can't children. And we were developing them to be yes, I can. As in, I am a South African. I can. So it was a real surprise to see the shine, the sparkle gone out of Busi's eyes. And we inquired, and it turned out that the woman who gave birth to her her mother had moved out to Kailicha, and Busi was living there, and it was very hard for her to come into Hout Bay. Often no transport money, long commuting hours. She was tired, she was exhausted, she was not being looked after. And I go into solution mode. That means that you must come and spend the year with us so that you can pass matric. That was it. You need to pass matric. That is all that matters. What is the solution? You need to be able to get to school easily. So you need to be in Hout Bay. We have a spare room. Hey presto, easy peasy. So I ring my husband who's up country working. We've got Busi coming to stay with us Mondays to Fridays, and then she can go home in the weekends. And that's how Busi came to start living in our house Monday to Friday. I didn't have much more information than that. And within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I think it was, she said, I can't go home. My mum doesn't have money for me. And out of principle, I said, I'm not paying for it. It wasn't about the money. I had never heard from her mother. I hadn't had a message. Busi had just moved into our house. I do want to say that at that time, my dad had just passed away. So I also wasn't dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And Nandipa at Amoyo was helping with the logistics. So I didn't know who was who in the zoo exactly. And so Busi moved in just after my father had passed away. And it was only during that time that I really got to understand the full story because, like I said earlier, first of all, I go into solution mode and then I work it all out. And I was dismayed that I had somebody's child living in my home and the parent hadn't reached out. And I just said, well, then you have to stay here weekends. I think it was 40 Rand she needed. But like I said, I was not going to give that 40 Rand because if the mother didn't care enough to see her daughter, then I was even more concerned. And then the truth and reality started coming out over time. But what really happened was ever since I was a little girl, I always thought I would adopt. And I can be very black and white about certain life choices. And the truth is that if I had never been able to conceive naturally, it was never going to be a problem for me because I just had this, well, then I'll adopt. It really was as simple as that for me. And I know for a lot of mothers, it's not, and that is absolutely okay. But I can honestly say that when my husband came back from his business trip, Busi had been with us for a few weeks. And I saw how he was around Busi, not flamboyant, not anything. I can't really put my finger on it. There was just something. A tenderness. He's quiet by nature, and Busi isn't. But it just worked.
Yeah.
And there's a big story into Busi's background. It's not for me to share. But anything that you wouldn't want for any child has been pretty much part of her childhood. And towards the end of the year, so Lotta was 2 years old at the time, so she's never known life without Busi. Manon was 11, and Busi was in matric. Busi was in matric, so in my head, Busi was 17. And towards the end of the year, she said it was a crazy, chaotic year. She said, I could see that the lights, again, were dimming. We'd had a fabulous year. She merged into the family. The kids loved her. And I said, Bus, what's wrong? Is it your exams are coming up? And she said, by the way, I still hadn't heard from the mother. What happens now? What happens after the exams? And I rang Alan up, and I can't remember where he was. And I said, what do we do? And he just said, well, as far as I'm concerned, she's part of our family. And she has a place in our family for life if that's what she wants. And I said, are you saying what I think you're saying? Can we adopt? Are we foster, adopt, but for life, forever daughter? And he said, if that's what she wants, yes. That was the conversation. That was the extent of the conversation. So I put the phone down, giving my age away again. This is how I put the phone down. And then I went upstairs to Manon, who's now nearly 12, and I had to have a chat with Manon about Busi. And I said, Busi's feeling very stressed. Had a chat with Dad. How would you feel if we told Busi that she can stay with us? And Manon said, forever. And I said, theoretically, yes. How would you feel about that? And she said, because she's got siblings on her father's side, she said, as far as I'm concerned, Busi's my favorite sibling. And then I had to have a quick talk with her. You understand that we have a pot. That pot now gets divided by 3 children. And there's going to be times when you'll want something and I'll say no because I need to get Busi this, or she's going to be going to college first, or she'll need a car first. So I had to have this very adult conversation. And Manon just said, I don't care about any of that. And to date, it has never come up. Never, ever, ever come up. And which isn't an uncommon issue in these types of situations. And then I went downstairs and I spoke to Busi, and it was literally 2 sentences. And it was, her response was, does that mean I can call you mum now? And from that moment on, it's been mum and dad. Now, what we found out shortly, I think it was that day actually, was that she wasn't 17. She was 20. It so bizarre that it had never come up, and that it was actually her 21st coming up in the December. That's why it had just never come onto the table. And there had been years of school missed due to situations and things. So we've never been able to. So the first conversation was that she could emancipate herself. There was no relationship, no love, nothing there. And unfortunately, due to the law in South Africa that don't allow adult adoptions, we've never been allowed to do the legal paperwork. But we did an adoption ceremony and we've done our own paperwork and we've adopted her in every sense of the word.
You're
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
And Kim, the story went viral on TikTok. I remember you shared with Busi, and the whole country just fell in love with your story. When I was growing up, my grandmother adopted 3 kids. I don't know if you knew, but in the last days of her life, one of the kids was the one who was by her side until the last day. And I realized that when you take a kid, you think you're helping the kid, but in essence, it's helping you. And I just want to know, how has that impacted you, your relationship with Busi, and what it means to you now?
Sure. I'm very impressed with your questions. Very well
Yeah.
thought out. I can't imagine life. It just felt so natural. The love, for me, the love is no different. I think everything happens for a reason. And some people say, I've got my child, I can't imagine having more child. But the way the world works and love works is that your pool of love just gets bigger.
Yeah.
It just expands so you can bring more in.
Yeah.
And our home felt whole when Busi joined our home. That's
Wow.
it just felt right. And we've had ancestral input.
Yeah.
We've done a certain ceremony, and the ancestors through Busi and through the Sangoma, said that they recognize Alan and I as Busi's rightful parents,
Yo,
Really?
that's deep.
and that we were her parents in a former life. So they blessed us as her parents. And that was, that was incredibly powerful.
Yo. And sorry, Maggie, but I just have to have a follow-up question. When did you decide that you needed to include her kind of cultural background into your family unit?
The ancestors spoke through Busi and told her that she needed to do a ceremony. And in that process, there's never been, I'm very open-minded with religion and faith, and Busi is able to choose what is right for her. And any prospective partners know that I will make good on Lobola. No.
I wasn't expecting that one. She wants the cows.
I love cows.
50 of them, calculate.
Oh,
50.
I believe it's quite a bit higher.
Oh my gosh. Guys, be careful, eh? Be careful. All the guys looking at Busi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's our family, it's our way. We are a very go with the flow. What is right? Let's talk about this. And
Super proud.
Wow, Kim, like I'm loving you. Like every time I get a new guest, I'm like, "Ka."
Let's adopt Kim now.
Let's adopt Kim.
Yeah.
I mean, Kim, your story. I love the fact that every time we get guests, I'm always blown because I don't know anything, and we pick up things. I mean, Sharon now is like blown also
I'm shocked
away.
also.
I'm shocked that she actually, because we were gonna move in slowly into religion, culture, and for umlungu, which is true. We all, I mean, you'll see even in our comments, we call you umlungu, ukuthi lo mlungu. My kids grew up. Actually, my kids are in those schools where it's like those fancy schools, in southern suburbs in Cape Town, how it's like Herschel, Springfield, Wynberg Boys, those sides where. We've seen, I have to be honest and blunt, we've seen so many kids being adopted by white families. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes I'm the first to critic. And the two things that make me critic, the one that you just touched, culture-wise, how does this child culturally gets joined with this family that doesn't eat bab, it doesn't eat mushu. And I mean, Busi was old enough to know how to make steamed bread, I'm sure, or to make stampu mushu and all those other things. And the second thing that to me has always been an issue, and being a mom who's a bit fussy, is the hair. Look, the hair, Kim, I would be like, but why this child is a Rasta now? Why is this child a Rasta? And I understand the struggle. You explained, you've put everything down so beautifully, and you've welcomed her, and you were open to say, okay, and she's big enough to say, mommy, I need this moisturizer. I need to keep it. My daughter was like, no, mommy, no more blowing out, no more relaxing, no, natural. And natural is expensive. I think you know how expensive natural hair is. So tell us, in terms of culture and religion, at home, what do you guys do? You do amadlozi, or you do both Christianity and amadlozi? What do you do at home?
we're not a practicing religion family. We have our faith. We know what we believe in. We try to be the best version of kindness. We follow the 10 Commandments. We are more a philosophical family of gratitude, positive mindset, kindness. So sometimes we pray, sometimes we'll do a gratitude circle. Anybody is welcome, any religion, any faith. As long as you're a good person, that's all that we honestly care about. Busi has her own journey with her faith. And I think it would have been different had we adopted Busi from birth. I would have sought out different advice. I think what you have raised is incredibly pertinent and valuable. However, there is, and I don't want to be dismissive, for me, and possibly because I'm not a church-going Christian, I think that the most important thing for a child is love and nurture. And if a child, and I have friends who have adopted children, I have a mixed race couple who've got a white son that literally fell into their lap. And so he's walking the journey of being this tall, handsome black man with a very, very milky white son, and how he's raising him with Xhosa or not, and ancestral elements or not. And because I've lived in different parts of the world, I've been exposed to different cultures. I had children in school in England, two Chinese sisters who'd been adopted from China as babies. In Holland, we had the big refugee centers. There were a lot of Iranian and Iraqi and Afghanistan children adopted into Dutch families. I just feel that if a child needs a home and that home is filled with love, then the other cultural elements can be looked into when that child is old enough to understand. However, I know from my friends who have adopted children that they do go seeking how to look after the hair and things. Busi was with us for quite a while. We were the ones making the pup because we love pup. And she hasn't made a lot of other of her African cultural food, even though we've asked her to.
Yeah.
So it's we don't really let anything become an issue.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It is
You just let it flow.
what we enjoy,
Yeah.
and yeah. We've got way too many other things. We are so
Yeah.
busy
Yeah.
as a family.
And
Yeah.
before we run out of time, Kim, what has been the reception in the community, especially in the non-Black community, having a Black child?
In the non-Black community, my friends or community are fascinated by how the precious became. We've all got nicknames in our family. So Busi's nickname, when we decided we were on a road trip, was Busi the Precious. So the Precious is loved by everybody. And when you know me, I don't think it comes as a surprise.
Yeah.
And that's people's take usually on that. Nothing ever negative. Busi, on the other hand, has met with negativity in the township. I've never been met with negativity. I have lots of mums and gogos coming to me saying thank you for what you've done for Busi. I've never had negativity in that. I had negativity when I first was working there because people didn't know me, didn't trust me. And the most shocking thing that ever happened was getting a death threat, that you are not welcome in this community if I see you. But that was taken care of by community leaders. And I've had people who didn't like me, didn't trust me, who sent me some ugly messages, who have then come up to me and apologized and said, I was wrong to send those messages to you, and thank you for what you do for our children. So I've just persevered in doing what I do And yeah,
So, Kim, in our podcast, we so far we've dealt with fathers, we've dealt with mothers, we've dealt with siblings, raising siblings, and we're gonna have more coming up. But you being in a blended family and being in South Africa, what message would you send out there to South Africans about being umlungu, adopting a black child, and what more as the community, as because the biggest thing also is healing, right? What more as South Africans, you have brought a healing for Busi because you've brought her in your home, you've brought a stability in her life. So what message would you send to the South Africans out there?
my messages are quite strong. Please stop having children that you can't afford and don't want to look after.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I really believe that once a child has been removed from a person, that person should be temporarily sterilized until they can prove. Please do not come to South Africa and then have children that you can't afford as a non-tax-paying citizen. So this is my
Kim, tomatoes, rotten tomatoes. Kim, what are
Yeah.
you doing?
No, hey, Kim, this one I'll back you up on it.
You-
it's not okay. You don't disrespect a country, and I'm half South African, half Dutch, but I have always tried to give more to this country than I've ever taken. And child neglect and child abuse can happen in any community, and stand up for the children. Doesn't matter It doesn't matter if your name gets tarnished. You've got to do what is right for the children in this country. They have to come first. Invest in the children. And I do really respect concerns around children not growing up knowing their culture, their culture's language. But guess what? I'm Dutch, and I grew up not speaking a single word of Dutch. And I learned Dutch when I was 16 years old, and I'm okay. And that is, yes, it is wonderful, but is it the end of the world? No, it is not. And I don't mean to be disrespectful towards anybody who thinks differently from me. I'm okay to have a different opinion from you. But at the end of the day, just how a person feels about themselves is the most important.
And Kim, thank you for the work that you're doing. To our viewers, please check out Amoyo Foundation. You're doing such amazing work. Not only is it performing arts, Maggie, but they get a break. I think breakfast or lunch.
When we've got the funds, we don't have enough funds for our feeding program at the moment.
They're coming.
The funds
They're
come
coming.
because
They're
if
coming.
you can
Monthly
see the
donors,
kids,
50 rand a month, and you will make such a
Please.
difference.
Yeah, no, they're
please,
coming.
this is a serious call out because the situation in that
Yeah.
community, it's not only Busi that I feel you've adopted a whole community.
Yeah.
You wake up every day for those kids.
Yeah.
And
we do
for
life
that,
skills, communication, interview skills. Our kids pass matric, they go into tertiary education. They're all around the country at top universities. Or we help them get gainful internships and employment. We help with personal and sexual health, and we just make them be seen and valued and give them a fun childhood.
true.
Equal opportunities.
Oh, this has been
Love it,
such an
Kim.
exciting interview.
Yes.
Our podcast is called Bent But Not Broken.
I love it.
And when we conclude, we ask you, what does it mean for you?
I'm bent in so many ways. I think that's the beauty in it, is that I don't know that there's a human being that isn't bent in some way. And there's beauty in all our different bentness. And we're not broken. We just continue, and we as a society just be kind, and life is good. That's all it comes down to. Smile at a stranger. Tell somebody, I appreciate you. The people who sweep the streets, my window, you see, I'm doing this again. I still wind down windows, my age. Thank you. You making a difference to my day. Thank people randomly. Yeah, just things like that.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kim, for coming. I mean, like, I'm coming to Out Bay. I'll be there. I'll be knocking on the door like, Kim, I'm here. Use me.
Come and visit sometime.
Yeah, definitely we'll pop in. We'll definitely pop in. Thank you so much.
To anyone listening to this podcast and you are feeling like you don't belong or you're even still searching for a home or a family,
Family is not where you start. You can create your own family or make your own family from friends and other external family members.
absolutely. Home is where you are seen, validated, and accepted.
And life might bend you, but remember, you are not broken.
You're not broken at all.
Yeah.
This is Bent But Not Broken podcast. Until we see you again next time, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.